So honestly, I don't think that someone else going to join. So Benjamin, thanks for joining. And do you want to talk about something?
Actually, yes. So I'm wondering if there's like, do you have an overview what's missing to get Core to version 1.0? Is there a plan? Or not an easy question, I
Hmm.
guess.
Yeah, we have been asked the same question before. Uh, well, maybe one of the main criteria would be to be completely able to implement the complete CF API spec and maybe run cuts. That would give you a complete API compliance. Now, unfortunately, we've done some experiments with that, and the very cuts need to be amended because they expect very concrete string outputs, which we simply cannot mimic on Kubernetes. Other than that, as missing pieces, what we don't have with Kurifi, just out of my mind, those are security groups, quotas. Cloud Foundry has support for various features. We don't support CFSSH.
Yeah, I guess we will also not
Um,
support the ISO segments, right? Because it doesn't make sense in Kubernetes.
yeah.
What we figured out what was quite interesting. So I'm not sure if it was CF space or CF spaces. The command actually does not work in Core because
Oh,
it calls the ISO segment endpoint.
um,
And we are like, yeah, that's totally stupid, right? That's not working. It then there was like, what do we do with that? It's like, okay, we just create a dummy return for that ISO. I'm not sure which exactly it was, like get ISO segments or something like that. And you just
mm,
return an empty array and then CF spaces will start working, right? So it was like stuff like that because we also tried to figure out a way how to see what's already working in Core what's not, because it's hard to get an overview, right? That I think there was also
yeah.
this discussion before uh, how to see or how to get an overview with what in the API is already working, what parameters are working and supported. And I think until now it's a manual approach where someone updated this overview that we have. Not
Yeah.
sure if you saw it, they wrote the API or the V3 API in as an open API spec. I'm wondering if we could use that somehow to compare.
Well, as far as I know, there is some initiative from my SAP colleagues to create an API spec that is machine friendly. That would be a good first step to have a machine friendly representation of the API because it's currently just a document.
Yeah.
Um, I have been thinking whether we can empower some AI tooling to analyze the code and just give us a summary of what we support and what we don't. But honestly, we haven't tried it.
Yeah, it is. I guess there's at the moment more important stuff to do, right? It's just like at some points, if you ask or if you get asked, yeah, can you tell me about the state of the project? What's working, what's not? And we are like, okay, we have for Cloud Foundry, we have like acceptance tests, right? And then we try to run those against Core just to see if those things we normally test work. And then we figured out, okay, some stuff is not working. And then we looked into that. Why is that? For example, that's also how we found the CF spaces thing. Um, but
Maybe
yeah,
if you find some gaps, maybe you can just open issues.
yeah, I told the guys, like, if you find something like that, create an issue so it's at least already documented. And then we can uh, talk to you people how we could tackle it, right? I mean, there's just like, okay, we have the issue with TS spaces. I think there's also an issue for that. if I remember correctly. One of my colleagues pointed it to me, and I was like, yeah, just ask if it's okay to return an empty array, for example, for the get ISO segments. So to make
Couple of
the
days ago, I think that I stumbled upon such an endpoint that returns some stub data. Maybe it's the same motivation.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's the main topic we have currently. It's like we try to contribute more. So the one of my colleagues finally joined my efforts and created a PI, I think yesterday or something like that, to implement something. And he was also like, yeah, it would be great if there would be more good first issues. And I was like, I'm not sure if there are that many good first issues left, or it's just like someone needs to label them. But then it's also like someone thinks it might be a good first issue. The question is if it really is, right? Depending of the experience you have.
Well, actually, the good first issue is a good question because right now we are closing a very big effort of supporting paging and sorting of list results.
Yeah, so the PRs like pagination, like, oh,
Yeah,
someone finally started tackling it.
it was a bit challenging to implement it, provided that you don't have a database and you cannot do order by. But yeah, we are soon going to close it. We have a couple of resources left, and to be honest, we are kind of in the dark what to do next. Um, Maybe we should collect some input to see what to do next. One of our colleagues started working on supporting security groups, but it's an experimental feature and it is, yeah, in the very beginning, it just defined the API endpoints, but not implemented for reals, like to create network policies. But then he switched his focus because of some internal reorgs at SAP. And we're wondering whether someone is interested in security groups, for example. Does it make sense to continue with that?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely from our side need to make it happen to attend this call frequently because then we can also give you feedback and talk about stuff like that, right? I mean, it's hard for you to predict. I mean, it was the same when you said you implemented the service endpoints and uh, you are happy for feedback if everything is working as expected. I mean, it's the same here for the endpoints, right? But that's also like we need an overview what's already there and what's not there, I guess, to see like, yeah, that makes sense. That will never be supported on Coryphe because of it's on Kubernetes, whatever.
Feedback on services was a bit strange because we actually did not get any feedback. So that either means that no one uses them or it just works.
Yeah, I
Uh,
provided, I think, a couple, or I created a
yeah,
couple of issues like with it behaves a bit differently, stuff like that. But since then, so we we defined a set of tests we now do for every version of Coryphe that's out there. And I see that the service creation, deletion, and stuff is working. So that's pretty good.
nice. And whether we are going 1.0, honestly, I don't know. In the Kubernetes ecosystem, I rarely see projects that have gone 1.0.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it is something normal not to be
Yes.
1.0
You will just use it and then it's like, yeah, it's not production ready, but use it in production.
if it works.
Yeah.
Mm. So yeah, I don't know how to answer. Maybe that should be a decision in a broader round to
Sure. No,
to
I was
agree on
just
what's the scope.
was just like if there's a road, if something exists like a roadmap, what like this, and so just out of curiosity. I mean, what I also saw was like lots of refactoring going on, right? I'm wondering if it would make sense to create issues to do the. I mean, I think until now the approach is you refactored something and then you're like, yeah, when we touch it again, we will refactor it and do it in one step. I'm wondering if that would be a good issue for people. Like, yeah, you see what we did here, do it in this section. So people might have a lower entry bar to
Yeah,
do something.
that's also an option, though not really exciting because it is just mechanical work.
Yes, but I so we are not like that experienced with programming in Go on our side. So we are doing more in Ruby and stuff like that. So for some people on our end, I think they were like just find an issue where they can start, right? Sometimes it's like
Mm.
implement something might be already challenging and like get that and then try to understand what's happening there might be help something, but I'm not sure. There was just
Well, we
one
have
colleague.
some certain technical depths on tests in the various runners we have. In the past, we've been going back and forward on our test strategies, what style of testing to use in different situations. And at the end, we settled down with the approach that for controllers, we could use pure test env tests and not have unit tests, which gives us a nice balance of having realistic tests, um, small amount because we don't have various flavors of tests, and the drawback that we don't test certain errors that you cannot achieve with test env. Um, so we should probably spread the pattern everywhere in the various runners where we have mixture of unit and integration tests. So that's one thing that we have been postponing for quite a long time.
Yeah, maybe that would be something someone could then pick up. I think that was one of the very first things I did in Corifee was like, yeah, compare this old style of tests and check if we have that in the new ones, and if not,
Mm.
add them or delete them. I think that was at the very beginning. That was something I did. But I mean, um, I guess there's a lot of stuff where you feel like, yeah, it's I can do more important stuff on your side than that, and maybe that are good first issues for someone else.
Yeah, okay, so maybe we can have a look at the backlog and put labels if we find any.
I mean, maybe we start with a couple of them and see if someone picks them up, and then see if we can find more.
Okay. And do you have any preference what you would like to see next in Kurifi?
So I'm pretty glad already with the service endpoint. So that was a pretty big thing on our list. Um, Security groups, I'm not sure how
With
good
the
it would.
service endpoints, we currently don't support update. You cannot update a service instance.
So you good. That means you cannot switch to a different plan, right?
Yeah.
That's a good information. Let me check this document that the one guy created to see if everything is working. If he figured that
Um,
out or if he just skipped this. So is there a
we have
plan
a
to support it?
terribly
Or is
we
there an
have a
issue?
terribly outdated document of things we support.
Yeah, I know that's
So
the one that's manually updated.
if you can merge your document with the other document, that would be useful.
Yeah,
Where there are plans where no one asked it.
yeah, yeah, so we would be interested in update for sure.
You could try contributing it as well.
Yeah, I will write that down. And checking the document where it should actually check such things. Yeah, it's also just mostly manual stuff, which is kind of bad. We're also working on automating that.
No, we don't work. We just
No,
imagine
we
using.
work in
Okay.
our on the thing we do. Yeah, actually, he does not test update. I will mark that here.
Yeah, basically, we don't try to like put API compliance as number one target. I personally like to see the progress like on demand and feature based. I mean, it makes no sense to implement an endpoint no one uses.
Yeah, yeah, that totally makes sense. So what I tried to do when I was looking for new stuff, I was like, okay, this is the endpoint, let's see, and try to implement all the params, right? The query params, like for an endpoint that already existed. After I understood it for one, I was like, yeah, now I can do it for the other ones as well, because now I understand at least partially what I need to do. But yeah, for the endpoints, it's also like I can understand. I mean, for some, it was like I found, oh, that endpoint doesn't exist. So I created it because, like I said, I understood how to do it. So I was like, yeah, I can contribute something. So I did that. But I can understand that it makes more sense to work on the stuff people are actually asking for instead of just, yeah, try to get as many API endpoints in there as possible. So maybe I will ask on our side what the people think, what is important of the stuff that's still missing, so we can give you some feedback on that.
That would be quite useful. Another thing that I'm personally curious, you've probably heard that they have revived the Stratus project.
Yes,
I never
actually,
had the time to just deploy it on Curify and to see
it
whether
will
and
not
how it
work
works.
because it doesn't support v3 yet.
Oh,
Yes, so so a part of our, so I'm from Any9s, right? And 520 and some people from our side are reviving it, the Stratos project. And yeah, the effort at the moment is to make it v3 compliant, which would be, yeah, the requirement to make it work with Curify at all, right?
yeah.
So I think the first thing they did was like trying to update everything that's outdated, which was a mess with Angular and Node and everything else. And I think the next big block is, yeah, make it only use v3. Which is hard because it's not just replace v2 with v3, right? It's like all the objects that get returned are different between v2 and v3, so you need to adjust
Yeah.
lots of things. And it seems
Well,
like it's also not possible to just do it in steps because it's just
yeah, of
like
course.
a whole mess. So if you start, you need to do all, as
Yeah.
it seems.
Another thing that came to my mind is another interesting topic would be metrics. So, in Cloud Foundry, we have this Loki Cache API, which Curify supports naively with some endpoints implemented on the Kubernetes metric server. But if you go to the metric server, the README at the beginning says, do not use the metric server for such sort of things like monitoring. Um,
Good to have it, right? Don't
yeah.
use it.
Well, they say that the metric server is used for scheduling and for monitoring. You should be using stuff like Prometheus and Open Telemetry and so on. So we have made this implementation optional, and one could plug an implementation of the log cache API that leverages some Kubernetes native better things like Prometheus, but we don't have such an implementation.
Yeah, I mean, they
Um,
also had a discussion with this zero sharing log stuff and metric stuff, where they also added now the open telemetry as an agent to CF to
mm,
fetch metrics. So maybe they provide some endpoint, or maybe there's something that could be copied from that approach as well.
maybe. Another question that we have been occasionally asked, what about events, especially audit events? We don't have an answer for that.
Yeah, it would also for the audit events, right? To
Yeah.
figure out who deleted something. And I think that's really interesting for people. So or normally it's not interesting for people until someone deleted something that shouldn't be deleted, and then it's very interesting for people.
Yeah. So yeah, those look like interesting topics. Unfortunately, they do not sound like good first issue. But this
That's right.
this doesn't mean that someone should not just try to do something. Maybe they will
Yeah,
succeed.
I wrote down some stuff that we talked about to bring back to the team, um, to find more people willing to try to contribute. I mean, I told them worst thing is you learn something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also so Vasily, I think you had contact with him already.
Mm-hmm.
He's also from our team. So he was the person testing all the functionality in Koifi and then figured out that stuff's not working. So I just will ask him tomorrow, how about update service? I just checked the list, it's not in there. Like.
Well, as a matter of fact, we do have an endpoint to update the service instance, but as far as I see, you can update tags, metadata, maybe credentials, but not the plan.
I mean that I wrote that down, so maybe someone can look into that and try to contribute that. I mean, if the endpoint is already there and there's also examples what's updating something, that shouldn't be that hard to update the plan in the end.
Well, the endpoint on Kurifi is one side. The other side is that that would require another service broker invocation to update the instance, because the instance is there in the end. So that would make it a bit more challenging. And also, one should keep in mind that update probably can also be asynchronous, which is another level of complexity.
Yeah, that's right. I think we had that with, I'm not sure, the delete, right? Was it the delete service or the create service? One of them. There was
Yeah,
this
both
similar
can be
issue. Yeah,
asynchronous.
where I tested and was like, hey, that behaves differently.
Yeah, we just got the CF help message wrong and did it the other way around.
But that's good. So I wrote down some stuff. I can bring that to the team, and then we will try that at least one person regularly joins this call so we can update each other about stuff that's ongoing. I think sometimes it's easier than writing.
That would be good.
And I will let you know when Stratos is supporting the V3 API. So I
Yeah, it
guess
would be
then
interesting to see it.
yeah, we will also try to connect it to Kurifi then and see what's happening.
Mm.
And then we will just ping the guys like, here, it doesn't work, fix it. Good. I guess then I asked everything people told me to ask and stuff I wanted to ask. And then I hope we will see each other in 2 weeks again.
Yeah.
Do you come to the CF day? Frankfurt?
Yeah, today with Georgi we discussed what to submit on the CF day. And maybe we would have a submission. We want to make a session that is a bit more interesting than a boring status update. We want to make it more nicer and pleasant to watch. But yeah, we'll see.
Okay.
But
Then
we're definitely going to submit something.
so then maybe we see each other there. So I will be
Mm,
at least there.
yeah, yeah. There are a couple of months till then.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Then have a
So
nice rest of your day.
hopefully I will see you in 2 weeks.
Yep. See you.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye bye.